A very good morning, dear attendees, and welcome to Adrenalin Xchange. Let's talk about the X factor in HR. Adrenalin Systems Limited prides itself on being the leader in the HR tech space. The past year has shown the increasingly important role that human resources is playing as a function and also becoming an integral player in business strategy and decisions. And we are all about having conversations around this new role play. To this effect, Adrenalin hosts thought leadership webinars where we invite stalwarts to share their thoughts and working models on current trends, which will greatly benefit not only the community but also organizations. To introduce the speakers for today's discussion and to set the context, I have with me Mr. Sridhar Ganesh, MD and CEO of Adrenalin Systems Limited. Good morning, sir.
Very good morning to you, Estrella. Very good morning. Thank you so much. Thank you for the tee off. It's indeed my privilege to welcome you participants to this very exciting and hopefully wisdom-filled webinar. So thank you for making time to join us. Really nice of you. My gratitude to the speakers, very seasoned HR professionals, predominantly from the manufacturing sector. And it is indeed our pleasure as Adrenalin to welcome them. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for making the time to be with us at this webinar. I'll briefly introduce each one of them to you and in terms of their background, where they work, what their qualifications are, and the vast amount of experience that they have. So first, I want to introduce our moderator this morning session to you, Mr. Madhu Raghunath, who's on the left extreme, who's waving his hand to you. He actually wears two hats. One, he wears a business hat, and the other, he wears an HR hat. Now, this is a very rare combination amongst HR professionals, so it's a great honor and privilege to have someone who's also overseeing business. So Madhu is the Chief Operating Officer for the dealership business of TVS. He's responsible for the P&L of TVS dealerships, which include Ashok Leyland, Mahindra, and Renault, across 4 states of India, and it employs about 5,000 people. So fairly large responsibility in terms of the business. He's also the HR head of the group head of HR and organizational capability for the TVS division of TVS & Sons, the automotive aftermarket company. TVS Automobile Solutions Private Limited, which is a subsidiary of TVS & Sons Private Limited. So that's what Madhu does most of his time in terms of wearing both these responsibilities. In terms of Madhu's qualifications, he's basically done his master's in personnel and industrial relations. He holds a diploma in labor laws. He's also a graduate of many American universities, the University of Michigan, the Ross Business School, the University of Virginia, the Darden Business School, as well as from Cornell in Ithaca near New York. So he's extremely well educated, qualified. He's done his strategic human resource management. He's done his foundations in business strategy. So you couldn't have had a better combination in terms of our moderator this morning. In terms of his experience, he has roughly about 25 years of experience. He has worked he started his life with Hindustan Unilever, a very iconic company for many of us, given their culture, heritage, and their track record in terms of business results. So he's been trained in the levers model, and now for the last 11 years, he's been with this another iconic company, one of the oldest and a very, very big brand in perhaps not all of India, but certainly mostly in the South, certainly, which is TVS. So very grateful. He's also a certified coach from the International Coaching Federation, and he's done his Values in Action Life Institute based life coaching. He has interest in mentoring and developing young people. So welcome, Madhu, to this webinar, and thank you for your time. It's indeed our pleasure to have you with us. I will now move to our Major Saab. Thank you, Madhu. Thank you. Major Saab, who's on the extreme right of your screen, who is another seasoned veteran He is the president of Human Resources and the Group CRO at Himat Singh. Himat Singh Saidi is a very large textile group which has very many iconic brands, a large and wonderful state-of-the-art facility in Bangalore. So that's what he's heading, the entire human resource function of the Himat Singh Group. Major is an alumnus of the Nagpur University, both in industrial relations and personnel management. That is where he did. He's actually a gold medalist in terms of his batch. And he has also completed an executive management program from IIM Bangalore and done special courses in INSEAD, Fontainebleau, and at the Asian Institute of Management in Manila. So Major has worked with the as the group head of Vedanta for Balco and has held many leadership positions, such as Tecumec, as a Vijedo, Global Steel Holding, Philippines, and Usha Martin. So welcome, hearty welcome to you, Major. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being present here, and looking forward to your, your wisdom and your inputs. Thank you so much. My friend from Ahmedabad, Jayesh Saluja. Not that others are not my friends, incidentally, gentlemen and ladies. He's an HR professional with close to 30 years of experience. He works for a very large tube and tube making, steel making company called Ratnamani Metals and Tubes, a major auto supplier. And he's also responsible for EHS, environment, health and safety. He's responsible for CSR and corporate communications. Jayesh has done his master's in labor welfare from Gujarat, postgraduate in business administration from SLIMS, Ahmedabad, and a law graduate with a Six Sigma qualification, green belt. So that's his background, and that's what he does. So welcome you, Jayesh, to this webinar. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being with us today. So nice of you. As the cliche goes, last but not the least, I'm going to introduce my very dear friend now, Rupesh Panambu of Yazaki. Yazaki Automotive Company is a Japanese market leader in the automotive business and in the home business. Many of us may not be aware of the Yazaki's leadership. Yazaki does basically electric wire harnesses for cars, and everything electrical is actually Yazaki's business. So they are a very big set of manufacturers in India. It's a private company. Rupesh has over 20 years of experience in managing business and in human resources. He has achieved distinction for his business in terms of the Great Place to Work Award, the Golden Peacock National Training Award, as well as a Silver Award for Tata Business Excellence Model. So very many extremely wonderful accreditations when he has headed the HR business. He's certified in Thomas Profiling. He's also done the Mid-Earth certification for ISMS. He's played a pivotal role in merger of HR interventions, largely slanted towards collective bargaining and industrial relations. And therefore, he brings forth a very, very deep understanding of the dynamics and the business of industrial relations to this webinar. So without further ado, I want to hand over the session. So that's the background. You can see how rich this experience is. They have close to about 100+ years of experience. And without further ado, I want to hand this over to Madhu, who is our moderator, to take off. I will rejoin you at the end of this session again, just to say a few words again in conclusion. Thank you so much, participants. Thank you for your presence again. All the very best to you, Madhu. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sridhar, for the wonderful introductions. So, good morning to all the participants. And I hope we have a very rich and interactive discussion. So we look forward to a lot of your questions in the chat window, which we will take mostly towards the end of the session. COVID-19 has been sort of a revelation to all of us in terms of the human will. It has tested the human will to its maximum capacity. And sometimes it has even surprised all of us, because we never knew that we had so much of resilience, tenacity, and the wherewithal to fight this pandemic. in very new ways, in very innovative ways, and very simple ways, even sometimes going back to our basics. It has made us realize how important some of our old Indian traditions were. I think it has become like a wake-up call to all of us to lead a much more uncomplicated and a simple life. And as I signed off the last year as a business head, when I was reflecting, I found that, in fact, F21, as we call it, 2021, though completely in the grip of pandemic, has in fact been one of our good years, not from a business performance point of view, while towards the end, many of the companies did pick up on business performance, but more in terms of getting back to our basics, cleaning up our own systems, processes, getting right some of our long-standing forgotten guidelines, SOPs. I think a lot more discipline and rigor has been brought in because of this pandemic. What we took for granted, some of the small things, I think we started doing this in a much more rigorous manner. The pandemic is one God's way of making us be on alert mode and trying to be more disciplined ourselves. It's been a very good cleanup year. And for most of the businesses, March month was a good month. It's been a very good end to a sort of a bad year. But I wouldn't call F21 as a bad year. I hold a very, very different view. I say F21 has been a wake-up call. It's a momentous year. I think all of us who have experienced F21 should be proud enough that we have come out stronger. But it's been 1 year now, and it would be a very good time to reflect back on some of the initial shocks and disbelief which we had amongst ourselves, because when we never heard of something called lockdown, we never heard of something called protocols and other things. When these were suddenly thrust on us, obviously there would be very different reactions from different sets of people. So today what we are going to do is get three very, very important industry leaders, three stalwarts in their own right, talk about some of their experiences and personal experiences during the course of this pandemic. And I think 1 year is a very good year to reflect back and see what have we done, what did we do right, some of the things we would have not done right, and today is a good time to reflect upon in hindsight, saying that I could have done this better. I think these are some of the nuggets which we are going to take in from people like Rupesh, Jayesh, and Major Kumud, where they have really marshaled and drove their companies. These are large companies, very, very all manufacturing based, where a lot more difficulty is there. In service industry, the challenges are very different because it's mainly to do with travel and meeting customers. Whereas in manufacturing, it is about productivity vis-a-vis ability to run industries basis very strict protocols. I think we would, and that's the base of creating consumption, because if you don't manufacture, you don't consume. So I think this is something as a golden opportunity. We would start off with Rupesh and understand from him what are his experiences during the pandemic, and especially the initial period, say in Yazaki, and how did they manage? What were the thoughts which came in through? How did the leadership team rally around and come to terms with the new reality? So my first question would be to Rupesh. Rupesh, it would be really helpful for all our participants and for all of us if you could just take us through how did Yazaki respond to this sudden challenge? Because for everybody, it was a very big shock. Suddenly lockdown and this and that. How did Yazaki respond to this, and how did you come to terms with the new reality? Can you please elaborate on
that? Sure. Thank you, Mr. Madhu, and I completely agree with you. For the shocks and beliefs, what we have been all going through. First of all, I would like to wish all a very good mornings. And thank you very much for giving the opportunity, Mr. Sridhar, to speak in this roundtable forum. I know there is a mix of crowd wherein like me and working for the similar kind of organization, there are many people who are many team members of us who are very anxious to learn from each other. As you rightly stated that we need to reflect back know what exactly was happening with us and how we can avoid it. Per se, it's the most difficult subject now, wherein I believe we believe majority of us are from the automobile sector, and it is purely dominated by the manual operations, wherein blue-collared employees are utilized in high number, where itself is a challenge, and hence we cannot overlook the aspect of them being absent from the shop floor. However, coming back to the reality, when we understood that there would be a lockdown which would be going, there was a complete turbulence all across. And as it was not known that there would be a lockdown, so we tried to understand what are the major challenges, to protect the business as well as the people. The leaders, it was a stress on the leaders, of course, because when you eventually the lockdown was extended, we understood that the top line won't be in our control. But what we could do was to manage with the bottom line. So first things first, we were trying to protect what exactly, because as we didn't have the control of the inflow, but we were trying to control over the outflow. And I'm sure each one of us were going through the same phase. But what we did was also the same. But then I would like to elaborate. We had the first attack on our expenses, basically. So wherein we were trying to understand, because now we understood due to lockdown, the people have gone into their protective mode. So we were rest assured that the people are now protected. But exactly, we need to also take care of the livelihoods, where of course the government of India had given us that stand that, okay, we need to pay. And that's how it should work, basically. But then it's very difficult when, suppose in Yazaki, we are around 10,000 people spread across all India. And we have around 8 to 10 plants. So you can imagine all going at rest could really bring out the expenses. And so we did some of the drastic steps. We measured first the cost, how it would be, and how we can avoid it. We had a lot of reviews. We first had discussions with our suppliers, with our vendors, and we understood that how we can really see to it that the flow is eventually distributed amongst the people, and we designed the initiatives. We negotiated with the suppliers also, and we negotiated with the employees also by understanding and communicating with each other. That suppose we would like to sustain for a longer range, because we were not aware how much this lockdown is going to get extended. It was going from March, April, May, June. So it was not known what to do next. So here then we started eventually, communicating with people, communicating with each other. And then we understood that we should be able to take some call of rationalizing the salaries up to that level. Also, we took some major actions on appraisals, wherein we thought that we should go slow down, and then eventually we should be able to sustain in the coming range. Eventually, when the scenarios change, of course, now we can see that the businesses have increased. We have given back whatever we deducted. But in the initial phase, what we was more emphasizing was on manpower rationalization, but we never thought to, ad hocly remove people, but to keep them on the bench so that we may need them and they may also need us. So we had a very healthy kind of interactions with the people, and then we eventually understood each other. And then we started defining the process. If suppose we would like to reduce the load of people, then whom should be targeted and how it should be going. Of course, it was a stress on the top leaders that when we had defined the process of separating out the people. That means we were trying to control over the direct cost. Then we were able to cost about indirect cost, and of course we were talking about the people to be taken on the board. Eventually, the government declared that we must have a social distancing. The good news started coming in when we said the plant is going to get operational, but with the rules. So we defined the social distancing rule. We defined what would be the priority and what would be the secondary where we can really take care of it. And we also defined that the work from home would be one of the key aspects where manufacturing never enjoyed this aspect of work from home, because work from home was then considered that it would be only for the software engineers and the software field, but not for the manufacturing. So this is the first time people have understood work from home. And of course, you have seen so many jokes and so many cartoons are going across, hovering around like how people would be reacting towards work from home. But what we did is we created kind of a communication hub where we used a very simple technique of creating the group of HR, creating the group of employees, creating the group of the operations, and we had a lot of interchanges. We increased our communications on day-to-day basis. We increased our review mechanisms, and we also seen that how we can increase the communication with each individual person to understand his or her health, whether it is on the right mode. The most difficult thing was to to interact with the unions. So we did the first thing first was to have online meetings with the union, which was initially very difficult, but later on they also understood that we need to have a lot of communications. We win their confidence by having a lot of interactions. We understood from them, from their pain areas, and then eventually we started understanding it is said as the new normal. So people have understood that how we need to cope up with each other, and then that's how the union also started gathering in. We have used the principle of being very transparent and honest. The top leaders always ensured one thing for sure: every month we had a bulletin, and they used to give a lot of information to all the employees online that how are we going to shape up, and what would be the next what we are going to do. With this, many people acclimatized themselves and they understood that what would be the next. So the factor called uncertainty was reduced. So that's how I think we coped up in terms of understanding the pressure. We took hard decisions. What I have mentioned, it's very easy to say state. So, but when we took it, it was very hard. So that's all. That's from my side. Madhusan, you want to know more? I can.
Yeah. One very interesting aspect, Rupesh, is that you all decided to pay back the deducted salary. I think that's a very wonderful gesture and a very important thing, because many companies took it on to their P&L and said that it's more of a deduction. I just want to understand what was the thought process behind the leadership in doing so, and because that will be a very good a lesson or a very good insight for many other companies, and because many of them, the logic was that there is a downturn and there is a loss for the company, and there is a share of loss for people also. But you took a different path, and TVS also obviously took the same path as you. I mean, we always have been doing, you beat the economic crisis in 2008 or so, we have always returned back the money. So I just want to understand your thought process, the leadership thought process in giving back the dues to the employees.
I believe that's a very brilliant question. Basically, what is said that if suppose it should not work on the principle of today's solution should not become a tomorrow's problem as such. Because what we could understand that if suppose people, once we lose the people or their morale, then it would be very difficult for us to gain it back. You know, we can take a dare decision of losing the business, but not losing the people. So the leaders had a very clear image of what is more important to them and what really is going to matter. It was the first of its kind that we had two section of people, one on white colored employee and another on blue colored employee. in both the sense, both had a very negative image of the market, because they used to hear 100 people have been sacked, 200 people have been sacked, there is no salary, 50% is deducted. How to go ahead with their day-to-day operations and day-to-day expenses? It's very easy now because we are at rest and we are comfortable. But you remember, you rewind it back, it was very uncertain because you are locked down. You don't know what is going outside the world. You can just hear, and you are completely dependent on a communication called WhatsApp or news or what. And you know very well how the media works. So we understood that, and we converted into a negativity of into a positive energy. And we thought that first thing first we should take care is we should see who are the who are the haves and who are the have-nots. So why don't we migrate those money into that, so the have-not will be protected and they would be there with us, and it will give us a great benefit in the future. The risk was we didn't know whether the period of this would sustain in a shorter while or a longer while. So we use a very simple logic of humanity, and we took risk, and we thought that people should be really an asset, and let's use it. We used transparent and open communication with the entire team, and we have we've thrown it openly that this is how we are looking at. What are your views? The union, of course, liked it, appreciated it, and they also thought that if suppose a management is trying to help us a lot, why can't we also share it? And surprisingly, we'll come to know that the union also said, sir, reduce our share, transfer it to the lower ups, because when it's a protected workman, they have reached up to some decent level. But those who are on the minimum wages, it's very difficult for them because it's on the basis of paid days. And 2 months, 3 months time later, you will never come to know who has really actually worked for you and who has really, who is going to work for you. Today, you can give them the payment, but tomorrow you won't come to know whether they would be paying you back. So I believe transparency, honest communication, and valuing people had given us a good thought. Let me share you our remarkable achievement. We have achieved the highest sale of the entire year of Yazaki. I think that's the result of treating people well, and that's how the leaders have focused their vision, and that's what we are now enjoying the fruits of whatever we had decided.
No, wonderful. I think this is a very, very good lesson. I think the ability for being tested upon our values of whatever we hold dear has been possible only due to COVID. Otherwise, in a normal circumstances, this would have not been tested out. And I think your faith has been repaid back well by saying that you had the highest ever sale. I think that is again a proof of the testimony of your principle of being transparent and being faithful to your employees. It's a wonderful experience. Thank you, Rupesh, for sharing this. I'll just move on to a very important aspect and ask Major Kumar to talk about safety and well-being, because these are two big important words which we were always speaking about all through last year. And we have a Major who is also in charge of EHS, Environment, Health and Safety, apart from heading the entire group's human resources. I think we would definitely benefit from his insights on safety versus productivity. This is always a big, debate, because when we are being extremely safe and cautious, then productivity sometimes get a hit. So we would like to hear from Major as to how did they balance both in Himmat Singhe, and what was the thought process, more importantly, in terms of well-being of employees, safety and well-being, because a lot of focus was given by the government, by leaderships across the corporate world, and also in terms of any special initiatives which they took in terms of caring for employee care becomes a very important aspect. So Major, we would like to hear from you as to how did you go about balancing safety and productivity, employee well-being and care, at the same time looking at business results. Please shed some light on that.
Yeah, Madhu. Madhu, first of all, when the orders were released from the government to restart the manufacturing setups, it came with a lot of restrictions, a lot of safety measures and guidelines to be put into force. And there was a lot of circulars being released from ICMR, from the state governments. And then we were also very enthusiastic to restart the plant after that 4 weeks of lockdown. And this was somewhere towards the end of April. Now, all those guidelines were the least we were required to do, but in our case, we went beyond. And we went beyond not just because we care for our people, but also we wanted our business to bounce back. We had already experienced a setback of almost a month of closure of the plant, and then we need to really bounce back and make up for the losses. So we went quite beyond, which I'm going to cover in short time. But with regard to all the guidelines which were issued from ICMR with regard to the precautions, everything was put in place, whether it is ensuring social distancing at the shop floors, in the cafeterias and the canteens, the transportation, having sanitizers placed at frequent distance, frequent hand washing and sanitizing of hands or wearing of masks. All those things were immediately, the teams were, they were quite fast, and all those actions were taken. And when the plant started, but then we realized that the people were really, not following these instructions in the true spirit, and people had to be really forced to follow all these instructions, safety instructions, so that the infection could be contained. And then we also realized that this is the change in the way of life, the way people live. It's a huge cultural change, and it actually required a lot of communications and awareness sessions amongst the workers and also amongst the blue collar, white collar people. So we did that. We also went to an extent of forming a COVID task force. This was a unique practice, which we started, a team comprising of around 80 to 100 people. And they were, differently dressed and in a particular uniform, literally doing policeman work, going across the shop floors and making sure that people are adhering to these safety guidelines. Also, counseling them, motivating them, around the clock across the shop floors and also in the accommodations. So Himmat Singha has got accommodations for all their operators. Approximately 70% of the workforce is accommodated, near to the factory setup. So this COVID task force really helped us a lot, because these were the people who were educating everybody, who were making sure that guidelines are really implemented in the right spirit. So all these actions which were mandated by the government were actually implemented. But as I said, we also went beyond. Now, the complication in our case was that textile industries are very densely populated when it comes to the shop floor, and ensuring social distancing, making sure that the infection is very well under control becomes a huge challenge. And that is where when we started the plant, we thought of giving a lot of confidence amongst the operators so that they feel that they're working in a very safe environment. So we came up with a strategy of testing 100% of the operators, those who are entering the plant. 100. So we had a strength of almost 5,000 people that time, those who were still available in our accommodations. There were around 2,000 odd people who had gone back because of lockdown to UP, Bihar, Orissa, and West Bengal. So there were 2-3 very important steps which our organization took. One was to partner with a private lab, at a subsidized rate, and this lab was responsible to conduct 100% COVID test of workers only the workers who were tested negative were allowed to enter the plant. So each and every worker was allocated a green card, and this worker was allowed to enter the complex only when he produced this green card. People, those who were tested positive, they were moved to a quarantine center. So Himmat Singha partnered with the district administration, district health center, and created its own quarantine center with a capacity of 200 people, 100 for boys and 100 for males and 100 for females. So we partnered with the state government. We created our own facility. We hired an agency which was expert in sanitizing and housekeeping of such facilities from Bangalore. They were responsible to take care of all the quarantined people. And all the operators who were tested positive were moved to a hospital which was again created by Himmat Singha, a dedicated hospital for our company with partnership with the state government. So we had health department helping us in this. We created our own hospital. The doctors were provided by the state government. We had our own doctors also. We had recruited a few doctors. We recruited nursing staffs and housekeeping staffs. 100-bedded dedicated hospital for COVID was being run by Himmat Singha. And this hospital was really helping as a blessing, because a lot of operators who was pulling in, who were flying in from various states to after the lockdown was finished to join back to work, were testing positive because they were traveling from far off places. And since we had mandated 100% of the testing, these people were put into those COVID hospitals there where they were undergoing treatment free of cost. So these 2-3 things, which were very, very important, we carried out. This gave a lot of confidence amongst the workers that yes, going inside the plant, working at the shop floor is very safe, because only people, those who are negative, are only allowed to enter. So that really helped us in a big way. In addition to this, we also provided immunity boosting medications to all our operators, all our staff. We had several channels of communications where we counseled them. We audiovisual aids were used for especially the operators, telling about strict do's and don'ts, providing them a platform to emotionally connect with them, because whoever is tested positive really needs a lot of moral support. Anybody who is feeling sick, I remember those days, even if you sneeze once, you start to get a lot of negative thoughts that, oh my God, I'm already infected with COVID. So there were several such cases. We provided a platform to our people to immediately, call the help center. So we had a help desk. People had the facility to call there up, get all the facilities right from testing, getting the treatments done. And also, if the requirement of admission arises in the hospital, even that. So that was a big facility which we provided to each and every employee, worker. They had this confidence that organization is with them in these tough times. Even if there is an infection, they'll be taken good care of. So these things really worked very well. There were communications channels which were open from the top leadership to our staff, also to workers, updating them on day-to-day guidelines which were being issued by the government, strict do's and don'ts, updates on the business, also updating them in case they need any kind of a support, what is the procedure they are supposed to follow. So overall, all these measures, it resulted overall that people felt safe, and then they worked to the fullest of their efficiency, and as a result we could really bounce back towards the end of the quarter, and towards the end of Q1 we were already very close to make up the losses whatever we had incurred in 1 month's time. Company didn't mind spending a lot of money. So just to give audiences an idea, the testing for the entire workforce costed us almost $500,000. just the testing alone. Then, creating our own quarantine facility, creating our own hospital costed around, $400,000. So that's the kind of, expenses company took on, basically to ensure that people are safe, the productivity is good, the business bounces back, which is, after all, the best for each and every one, and also to ensure the continuity of livelihood of people. So around 2,000 of our workers, they had migrated back to their natives because of the lockdown. We also flew them. 70% of these 2,000 people were flown from their respective states. So, and then there were dedicated flights for Himatsingka. Entire Vistara flight is being booked for Himatsingka operators, and flight taking off from Patna, flight taking off from Lucknow, Bhubaneswar. So dedicated flights being booked to fly down our people. We hired buses coming from Allahabad and Patna, because trains were trains were operating at a very minimum strength. I think just 20-25% of the train network was working there. So company took all these bold steps to ensure that the people are safe. At the same time, the business bounces back and the productivity is enhanced. So overall, I would say it was a tough time, but with the sheer dedication of the leadership, the teamwork of the core group, we could come out of this entire pandemic crisis, I would say, within 60 days after the lockdown was lifted.
I think it's a wonderful storyline, Mukund. I think very, very important. In fact, I wanted to ask you all, how did you all deal with migrant labor? And it's very heartening to note, especially with the type of media reports on migrant labor. You actually flew back people in dedicated planes and got them in secured buses. Wonderful. And the other thing which stands out is 100% testing and a separate quarantine facility and a separate hospital. I think huge amount of work. And I think like what earlier Rupesh had mentioned, like in Yazaki, Himatsingka had faith in people, faith in humanity, and I think that is paying business results, giving back in business results. It has been repeatedly proven, again in your case, that you have been able to really cover up your losses. I think truly the cliched statement of investing in people pays back in business results. I think the COVID year has been able to prove that to us. In normal times, it will only be a statement that investing in people pays you back dividends. Here, you are able to see it in action, and I can really feel you in the thick of action. While you narrated all of this, it's very heartening. I think it's very envious. Very few people get these opportunities to be in the thick of action, of doing such large-scale efforts, and especially with a very, very niche focus on safety. Wonderfully put it, Major Kumar, and thanks for this sharing. I hope our audiences would be taking in these nuggets. A lot of these times, many of our HR colleagues might sometimes find it difficult to sometimes convince some of the business leaders on the effects of investing in people. I think these stories from, say, Yazaki or Himatsingka in your own group actually put in and bring back the belief that yes, we do need to invest in people. Similarly, I'm now going to go over to Jayesh, who's again had a very illustrious career, and now with Ratnamani, who's one of the largest leaders in SS pipes and tubes. Jayesh, I would request you to share, especially employee engagement was a very, very core focus during this entire pandemic. And I'll broadly give these questions of how did leadership look at employee engagement? We did hear some small snippets from Yazaki and like when Rupesh and Major talked. But specifically in a large company like yours, how did you really crack this aspect of employee engagement, continuously engaging with people? How did leadership react to it? Obviously, there will be various extreme forms of reactions. some very willing, some not so willing, some in the middle ground. And I think HR, as being a HR head, you will have to play the neutralizing factor and try to bring in everybody on the same page. Very interesting to note. With your experience and expertise, we would love to hear from you your experience during the pandemic, especially with focus on employee engagement. How did you really assure employees and keep them connected with you all? Please.
Okay. Thank you, Madhu, and thank you all the participants to be there on the session. Thank you, Sridhar, as well. I mean, both of the panelists, they share the entire experience of themselves. We were most of the time similar, but yeah, there were certain changes that we did in our own environment. I'll just share with you initially when the news were coming up. This I'm talking about somewhere in January, February. That the pandemic is there, the Wuhan virus is spreading and stuff like that. We thought that perhaps we are, we have the health and safety issue on hand. And as the things started rolling out, and we thought that perhaps we are landing up in a situation which is much precarious than what we actually thought. So initial phase was like health and safety issue. So what we did was we organized the awareness programs. We invited the medical specialists and who actually trained us, our people, into SOPs, what precautions you have to take and stuff like that. This was done for the entire workforce, including the senior management team and the staff. Then when the lockdown was declared, and then we sensed the entire severity of the issue, the senior management team went into a huddle and we screened all the information which was coming and what to do, what not to do and stuff like that. The mandates were taken daily, and we created a special task force which comprises of the HR, EHS, OHC, transport, administration, housekeeping. So all the kind of people that we really mobilized together, and a WhatsApp group was formed. So all the decisions that we were taking on the daily basis in the senior management team was shared. So we initiate, like all the initiatives were designed, conceptualized, and executed by this task force. There was a separate group which was communicating with the locational HR heads and other line management. Then further it was at the department levels and right down to the lowest rank of the organization. So the communication and the engagement becomes a very pivotal factor in dealing in any kind of crisis. Pandemic was a very special situation. So and the constraints were also there. Despite all the constraints, people working from the scattered locations were together 24/7 and with an immense commitment. I'm really touched by the kind of work my team did it, along with the support of the leadership, was fantastic. I'll just share with you my personal experience of engaging, and this was the first case that we was reported for positive, and a distress call came from the wife of my colleague, and she said that she is a paramedic and both the parents are in hospital. Father is on the ventilator, mother is 82 years, and her husband was, like my colleague, was so scared of the situation that he is not moving out, and he is also tested positive. And the lady has a kid who is very young. There are financial issues, there are emotional issues, there are medical issues, and she requested that why don't you please speak to him. And this was the first instance in my life. I heard all these stories and news and everything about COVID situations and stuff like that. First instance was when I spoke to the gentleman. When I spoke to the colleague of mine, I could really sense what is going on. This guy was on the verge of collapse, and he said that he was breathless. He was unable to really speak. The words were not making any sense. And, I was there also, facing all the situation, and I wanted to bring back to the normalcy for him. Over a phone, it was very, very difficult. But then I realized that, I need to do something about this family. I counseled him on the phone itself, and slowly and gradually, the guy actually started breathing properly and regained the confidence. I said that you have to fight there. You have to fight for your family. You have to fight for ourselves, and we are there with you. Nothing will happen to you or your family, and rest assured, everything that is required to be done would be done. And that gave a confidence. He said, I'm sorry, I may be like talking to you for the last time in my life, but I apologize if I had done anything wrong and stuff like that. So what I'm trying to say is these are emotional. This was apart from all the SOPs and challenges and business and all that. Dealing with people and their emotions was very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. Other problems we would have actually solved it. And the entire team, the way we supported, financially also we supported them. And when he came back after 15, 20 days back, to the office, there were tears in his eyes. I mean, and there are numerous such examples, and we had 90 such cases. Unfortunately, we lost 2 of them, but 90 such cases all have a story in themselves. And it was really pathetic. We were just reviewing day before yesterday the situation, what happened in the phase 1, and now in the wave 2, which has been said technically it has started. The numbers have gone up drastically. We were 90 at a time. Now we are already 65. And touch wood, the intensity is very low. So what I'm trying to say is, apart from all situations where there of the business and all, which we did it, we were one of those first organization to start the operations well before the lockdown was closed. So in a sense that we started to, because that normalization of the operations was also equally important while the lives and livelihood of the people were there. So I mean, very enriching experience personally as a HR professional. Never thought that the kind of situation that we would be facing and the kind of support that and collaboration that would be there within the organization and outside the organization. We used to talk to people outside, whether the government agencies or the peer group or any other organization. I mean, the kind of response and the information and everything was just like available on a call. That I didn't experience any time in my career.
Okay, wonderful. I think the most important thing, the thread which I took out from your submissions was empathy and talking to people.
Yeah.
Many times we always think engagement means a lot more of formal, structured, some sort of a program. But I think you've beautifully brought out the aspect of emotional connect. When you talk to that colleague of yours, you just use that as an example, and you said you have 90 more cases like that. But outlining and illustrating that example showed that the wonderful quality of empathy which you and your company were standing by, and you were able to bring back to life a person. In fact, your conversation has helped that colleague to live again. I think I'm very sure about it from the way you describe it. I think this is a very big lesson for all HR professionals, where many times people are just yearning for somebody to listen to them. It's nothing. I mean, it is not about money or anything, but they just want somebody to listen to them. And you gave a very patient ear to that colleague, and he was able to voice out his concerns and apprehensions, and you were able to assure him of a good life. And somebody from outside, when they give that sort of a support, I think that's really been helpful. Now, this brings me to a very interesting aspect, and this is something which has been talked about. And right now, this topic would be open to all of you all. Please do chip in. All of you all can chip in with your own experiences, whatever you have. The biggest talking point in last year during the pandemic was mental health well-being. Okay, mental well-being, as they say, because COVID, as it affected a lot of us physically, it also affected a lot more on the mental aspect of a human being. It is about fear, it's about loss of loved ones. I could also see many people drawing up their wills and actually getting to prepare, because many times in India we don't actually prepare a lot of these things. We think it is a very bad omen and we should not do it. But I think last year a lot more of focus on preparing, sharing with family members, especially spouses, because again we are very deficient in doing so. I keep on telling to a lot more people that you do need to share with your spouse a lot of your financial details, because many times when we are off and we are gone, they are not even aware, they are clueless about all the financial details. So I think that is something which brought to the fore a lot of mental pressure, mental agony. I just want to touch upon any special initiative on mental health well-being, be it yoga or meditation or anything else, or even simple counseling like what you did, a very effective way, or talking, listening to people, or a communication hub which Rupesh talked about when during his sharing, and what Major talked about in terms of the elaborate arrangements on transporting in a very safe ecosystem the migrant employees. I think, how did you all focus on mental health well-being? It would be interesting to note some of your experiences on that front. Anybody can go in first. I leave it open.
Yeah.
Madhu, let me just share with you.
Rupesh,
Rupesh, please.
Okay. No, Jason, please go ahead.
Please, Rupesh.
Okay. Actually, as you rightly said, that someone should listen to them, and the employees, as we have stated, that majority of them were like isolated, and some of them were more worried, and eventually it was also witnessed that majority of them, they have become like, they started internalizing the things that they are not really strong, and immunity is the buzzword we should really work upon, because there's no medicine which is going to help them out. So naturally, everybody started picking up their gears, and then they started doing it their own way. Some of them got injured too. But then I believe we understood that there is a need that we must have a structured approach. And thus we tied up with some of the professional fitness coach, wherein that was an online sessions. And of course, when the lockdown was open up, then we eventually made it a point that the senior leaders first should take care of themselves, which are responsible for the people actually. And we made their life miserable actually. So I was also a part of it, wherein it was a KPI kind of approach, which was given that you must perform Saturday and Sunday, you must be there on the ground doing all sort of your activities. And there was one spy which was given, that who used to take photograph and post it on the group, and the CEO and the MD used to look upon. And not only that, they went into an extent of insulting by awarding those who were sincere and those not to better get next time. So that was one part of it on a jovial note, but on another part also we started hiring the yoga guru. And also we seen that Facebook actually, I mean, of course, these are like either a boon or a curse. Curse because if suppose you misuse it, of course, it would be a curse. But then we started interacting on the Facebook. There are good experts actually. We started highlighting that why don't you go and do something on Facebook, and people started following it up. And then it started, people started following each other. People started creating their YouTube videos, started posting on the wall, and then people started appreciating, and then we used to share it in the groups.
I'll call you back.
Major's up on the call. So
Sorry.
it's okay. So these kind of, I think, initiatives has helped a lot. Even the workers also started interacting about having the videos, and then how to go about it. I mean, because see, they are coming. English wouldn't be the language, but the local languages would really help them out. So people started interacting with all those which was comfortable for them, and that's how I think that has come up to a level. One was this, and second, we also attacked on the insurance part of it, because we thought that everything on air cannot be really giving an assurance, but something really concrete would really work upon. So we captured the audience of giving an extra premium over the insurance, wherein we said to our operators that you would be covered for a COVID policy, and then that boosted their confidence. I said, sir, there was only one statement they used to say, sir, we want to work with the company and we don't want to shut it down, but you should also take care of us. So this is how we are going to mutually agree. So that's what we did. Sorry, Jay-san, I think over to you, because you have much more experience in this. I would like to throw this open to you too.
Thanks, Rupesh. I think you had done my job. I had few common points which we did, but anyways, what we did was, it was felt that, apart from taking care of all the SOPs and stuff like that, we should also do something about the immunity. And that's where we got in touch with the Ayurvedic University in Mehsana, which is near to our location. We had a special preparation done, and this was distributed every week for the employees. Second thing that we did different was, like, even for the families, we gave that doses and monitored whether they are actually taking, and whether there has been any. This is how we had actually restricted the numbers. And second thing, of course, we did the COVID insurance. We enhanced the corporate buffer of our medical insurance by 10 times. And this gave a lot of confidence to the people. I think, yeah, that's something which I just wanted to share. Over to you, Madhu.
Yeah. In our case, again, many things common, what Rupesh and Jay just mentioned, including insurance aspect, and then, giving a lot of fitness tips, and, having certain apps, logging in people into apps to do, everyday fitness. But the most important thing, what, we did in our organization was to clear out the myths and the fears from the minds of people. So just imagine 1 year back how the situation was. 1 year back, anybody contracting COVID thought that almost I'm dead. That's not the case today. And the main reason is, then, people had a lot of misinformation, myths in their mind, unnecessary fears. So what we did is, we started counseling people in groups of 20, 30 over Zoom calls. The initiative was taken by all the senior leaders, and the main idea was to only make them aware that even if somebody gets infected, doesn't really mean that things are going to be pretty serious, because especially people those who are younger age, 50 below, would recover without any medication as such. We used to give them examples of people those who have recovered. We used to tell them stories of so many people got infected and they didn't even have to go to a hospital once, and they were recovered at home. So this was a very important initiative from our side, which gave people a lot of comfort that yes, this is not as serious a thing as we feel. Only beyond a certain limit, only beyond a certain conditions, if things deteriorate, one has to really start to get worried. And once that situation comes, in any one of case, the organization is always behind them. As I mentioned, the 24/7 help center what we had, that gave a lot of confidence amongst our people. They knew in case they face any problem, they will be picked up from home, they will be taken for the testing, they will be brought back, their medications will be delivered at home. And then, if at all there's a requirement of hospitalization, organization will definitely take care, and everything is going to be at the expense of the organization. So from our side, we attacked the mindset of the people. And we took out really the fear which was embedded in the minds. So that really helped us.
Okay, I think it's very heartening to note all three of you all took steps to alleviate the fears and concerns in the minds of the people. Two other aspects which gained a lot of prominence during the pandemic, and I just want quickly to get some insights on how did you all do it and how did it impact you all. One is the entire piece around technology, digitalization, digitization, and how did this impact work? Because we impacted it impacted us in ways which we never knew that it would do so for us. Things which were not possible, which we thought were never possible, like remote meetings, Zoom call meetings, Teams meetings. It all happened so fluently, we all got used to it. So I just want to understand and how it is going to become a way of life, like the one which you are doing now, typically on a virtual webinar like this. The second aspect is connected with it's about hybrid working, both online and offline. That's become the way of life. There are two big pillars which has gained prominence, and I think going forward into the future also, even if you resume back into physical office, I think these two will now be there forever to stay with us in our working life, in our corporate life. I just want to hear some thoughts around this technology and impact of it, and hybrid working, and how do you manage challenges around hybrid working, remote working, on and off office, so all of that. So if you can throw some light on that, it will be helpful for our participants.
So let's start in the reverse order, if you allow, Jayesh and Rupe. Yeah. Very rightly said. Before the pandemic, we could never imagine, the task which we are accomplishing today would be accomplished, without traveling, without meeting face to face. So a lot has been taught by COVID as far as the technology is concerned. We now know how to use our time in a more productive manner. You see, in last 1 year, none of us have traveled outside our workplaces, and the business has been doing well. So that itself is an example that technology works. Not just for internal departmental Zoom meetings, not only the meetings with the suppliers and vendors, but also we leveraged, in our case, we leveraged technology to even get our clients' audits done of the plant. All our clients and customers are based in US and Europe. We conducted all our compliance audits done online. The tours taken by the customers were virtual in nature. Nobody could travel, and then we assured them that we are going to give them a virtual tour. They can go around, seeing on the webcam how the plant looks. They can point out, whatever observations they might have, and then close all those observations, online. You rectify the point, or click a picture, upload, and then send it. Audit is done. Entire campus recruitment we completed 2 months back was done online, including group discussions, the interviews, the presentations to the students. We have selected almost 70 odd bright youngsters, everything done online, no traveling absolutely whatsoever. So, in every aspect we see that technology is helping us in a big way. Going forward, we are going to continue many of the things. We really don't need to travel. The candidates no more travel to the workplace for the final round of interaction. We release offer letters on Zoom after Zoom interactions. So a lot has been learned. Many of these things, even when the COVID is gone, are going to continue, at least in our organization. Also, with regard to the future, the near future, next 2 to 3 months time, I also feel with the COVID vaccinations coming in, and now Indian government expediting the inflow of COVID vaccines from US and also from other countries, in next 2 to 3 months time, a lot of our population, sizable population, in my opinion, is going to get vaccinated. And then the hybrid model of working, online and offline could be the best combination, because you have people, those who are already vaccinated, can easily come to the office. People, those who are still to be vaccinated, can work from home. This can continue maybe for an year's time. And going forward, whatever learnings we have taken from COVID era, this hybrid model, I think, is going to work very, very well.
Okay, Rupesh and Jayesh, any thoughts on this? On digitization technology?
Yeah, I agree with Major. The future lies in digitization of our operations to various degrees, depending on the kind of business verticals that you are into, or the industry vertical. But one thing is very clear: we are expecting a new disruption which may happen, which can be called as the big data. So these are very baby steps inside of the future that we are now walking in. And I personally feel every organization has experimented with some sort of digitization and technology in their operations. Manufacturing bit lagging behind, but would not really say that this is something which we cannot really cope up. But I think every organization has come to the terms with that work from home could be a new normal for us. In fact, last week only, we formally defined the work from home policy. Up till now, it was all ad hoc, informal processes and systems were there. Now we have defined it. And one more major from the HR perspective, it was a paradigm that we crossed over. Was earlier it was the physical presence of an individual was assuring for the performance. Okay, and while we were not too comfortable with the work from home, it is now shifting, and it is saying that okay, instead of compliance or the processes, I wanted to focus on people's accomplishment. Whether a person works from home or office or somewhere else, whether he is accomplishing for the organization. I think, and that's a major thought which is shifting now. And if that happens, I think technology and digitization would be the future for the organizations.
Yeah, thank you. Rupesh, any quick thoughts before we take on questions from the participants?
Yeah, in fact, I wouldn't be much more focusing on the technology here, but I would like to focus on the threat to all my HR friends here. I agree that majority of us would be by force working from home because it's a government directive and you cannot be 100% present. That's what we said. But in the plants, yes, people are working, so they are fully engaged. It's a process of an engagement. But I also would like to measure the threat. Around 25 to 30% people which are on work from home, we should be able to measure them whether these people, if given an opportunity, would like to come down to the offices. Why I'm saying so? Because I have understood one thing, that majority of them, they have started internalizing and understanding that the field what they are into and what is going to happen to them is always an uncertainty till the time Corona goes away. So it is always, we must have a parallel thing which should be in our hand. You consider them, they are going to come back, would be a very deep question and a concern whether these gentlemen or this team would be coming back to you. So we did some kind of experiments and we were trying to understand. We got the first jolt that some of them, those who are continuously on work from home, if suppose you ask them that whether you would be coming, you will be having a pitch drop silence. How about you're going to take about our social distancing? How you're going to take care about our vaccination? How you're going to take care about our government guidelines? Then they will suddenly start showing you that. There's no harm. I'm not at all per se blaming them, but I'm trying to understand the threats to all the HR fraternity here, because the management would like to ask and understand to each one of us, are you really ready if suppose it is declared that the corona would be going away now, and next month you should be, be ready on the toes that they are working for you physically on the workplace. So that's only my question actually, and as an indicator to all, that's what I would like to highlight this point to all the forum basically. So that's all from my side.
Okay, very good caution and wise counsel statement from Rupesh. I think building on all what three of them had said, hybrid working would definitely form a part of our lives in the future, and because going by the ability of the flexibility which it affords, the convenience which it affords to certain sections of people, especially the people who can afford to do that sort of a work. Similarly, I think doing a small check-in with your employees, whether they are still their employees, both emotionally and mentally and physically connected with you all, is also important. And I think that is where this hybrid working of on and off thing would work. And most importantly, as Major said and as Jayesh had said, was hybrid working out of this offline model actually makes it online model, actually makes trust coming in a lot more. They talked about audits and compliance and a lot more things. And I think the speed of trust, which all of us are knowing about, trust is very important. This has enabled a lot of trust to build up. So people become more responsible. So when they are doing an audit online, they take it upon themselves to be more responsible and more accurate in their submissions. So I think very good inputs and suggestions, Rupesh, Major and Jayesh. Now I think I would request Israela to throw up some of the questions which has come in from the participants. Israela, if you can read out the questions, the panelists would be happy to answer, and some of it, if I can answer, I would also do so.
Yes. So we've had some questions coming in. First by Dili Thaben. The question is, how can one manage the shortage of workers because of the pandemic, as many are going back to their hometown? I think in terms of manufacturing organizations.
Yeah, I will just build on, since I have had the benefit of being a moderator and listening to all of them very intently. I would draw upon the wonderful work which Major had talked about. He talked about organizing some accommodations nearby their factory and actually spending. I think that is the two big things. I always look at management's commitment in terms of three things, three parameters: money, effort, and time. I think all three of them has been met by Major's organization, where they talked about not just money, but also time and effort to really get involved and care for people. And Major, I'm just giving you a trailer, so if you can elaborate on that as to how did you retain those employees, because you again flew them back and you got organized accommodation, especially for manufacturing, where there are large numbers required. Would you like to just answer this, gentleman?
Yeah. There's a tendency of workers to panic. Although in the second wave, what I can see is that panic is not as much it was in the first wave. So it's going to be much easier in the second wave to retain the operators and the workers. Now the key is to communicate, counsel, and then give confidence. That's the key. They must get the confidence that organization is going to take good care of them. They must get confidence that they're going to be paid, work or no work, and they are going to be absolutely, in the work, retained. If these people, they have this confidence, there's no reason, why they should be going back to the workplaces, to their hometowns, at least in the second wave. In the first wave, scenario was totally different because, nobody knew how long the lockdown is going to prevail. And there was a huge panic, and the media was showing, people walking up to 2,000 kilometers going back to their home, so desperate. So at that time, it was really difficult, but we somehow managed, for all the things, for all the reasons, Madhu, what you mentioned. But in the second wave, it is much easier. We have learned a lot of lessons. Even the workers have also seen going there and sitting in their hometown has not yielded them anything actually. many of the workers actually repented having gone, because even when they wanted to come back, they didn't find any proper mode to come back. So they were actually repenting. So they have to be told all these things. They have to be counseled well. They have to be taken good care. And if we do that, and it's all engagement, if we engage very well with them, there's no reason, at least in the second wave, why the workers should go back and migrate back to their hometowns.
Very well put. 3 C's: communicate, counsel, and confidence. Creating confidence.
Yeah.
Shall I move on to the next one?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay. So we spoke about engagement, wellness, learning, and performance during the pandemic. What do you think should be the focus points for HRs going forward?
Rupesh, you want to take this?
Yeah. I think it's a very interesting question, and it's a very large area question. So I have an option to choose and pick up the one which will really give a direction to this. I believe the first thing first is the whereabouts about the employees. Majority of us, we are unknown about where the employee stay, what the employee do, and what is his family background. We must have a check of the employee's personal connect, one, because with regards to performance, or with regards to the job per se performances, it is but obvious that we know, because we can see and we can feel what the data has been uploaded and how the performance can be evaluated, or how the person can be evaluated. What is more important is, it's like how the personal connect is more important. How we can reach to the person there will allow us to set our direction, to have a personal connect first, to set what exactly is the need of that employee. And the third is what comfortability we can give in terms of on the emotional side. We'll have a lot of interactions with this. We'll have to burn a lot of energy as an HR. Then I think we would be able to see the employee are really getting engaged, and we would be able to see them performing in this uncertain area. So I believe that's what the core principle is, because that's how it would really look upon.
Okay, very well put, Rupesh. I think engagement is the key. I think one of the key pillars for HR going forward, like what Major had said and also Jayesh had said earlier, and what you're alluding to now is engagement. So if there is one thing which HR professionals should do going forward very well, is keep deeply engaged with the employees, so that you are able to get the personal side of their life well connected, and then performance becomes a very incidental byproduct. A very good performance becomes an incidental byproduct, because they are going to come and, like what you said earlier, you just take care of us, then we don't want the company or the factory to shut down. I think that's the connect which you need to establish. Thank you, Rupesh, for sharing this. Visela, we can go to the next question.
Yes. So given the second wave, what more can and should be done in the area of employee engagement? Because we have all heard now that the stronger and deeper the employee engagement, the positive impact it has on business growth.
Yeah, Israel, I think we have spoken well about this. I think this question has been answered. So maybe if we can go on to the next question, it would be helpful for the participants.
All right. So what kind of R&R programs have you run during this period? As these have been extraordinary times, with employees going the extra mile or going beyond the call of duty.
Okay, that's a good question. Okay. Any of you all want to take it? Jayesh or Major or Rupesh? Reward and recognition.
Yeah. Correct. So thanks, Madhu. I think R&R was an issue when we designed the entire program for resuming the operations. So what we did was, there was a special incentive that we shared with the employees who came during the lockdown period, and established all the essential services for the organization. And they were recognized also. All the frontline workers who have contributed during this pandemic selflessly were also recognized by the top management team. And it was also like, a one-liner message which was given by the seniors that, we have to take care of our people. And if we take care of them, everything else is just taken care automatically, and which is what Madhu was also sharing. So I think that clarity of thought and doling out certain this thing incentives was not an issue at all. Like, it was like done deal. You have to really incentivize them who are taking a risk and coming to the job. So I mean, it went on very smoothly for us.
Okay, good. Israel, I think we can take one more last question, and then we'll leave it for the ending comments by Sridhar. So one last question.
Yes. How will the hybrid model continue even after the pandemic? Do you have any approach for that?
Yeah, I think we spoke at length about this. I think hybrid model will continue, with many organizations talking about both online and offline presence. And I think Rupesh gave a very unique spin to it in terms of getting to know our employees more closely. I think it's very valid. And I think this is here to stay. I think many organizations would take this more, not only from a COVID perspective, but more from a flexibility and a cost perspective, because many times you can actually do a hot desking or reduce your office space, or maybe look at convenience, look at 24/7 sort of presence, work anytime, anywhere, any time you like. So it gives a lot of flexibility and bandwidth to people. And I think it's going to be the key focus is, as Jayesh talked about, is accomplishment. It's not about physical presence or so. It's about how much your employees are able to accomplish. I think that's going to be the key cornerstone. I think the rigidity over erstwhile HR dogmas, if I can call, in terms of physical presence, punching in, punching out, all of that will slowly vary. Obviously, manufacturing, where there is a physical presence required, that will continue. But even in manufacturing, where jobs or roles can be done from an offline mode or through online, I think that would be the done thing going forward, if you have to retain high quality talent, because you give them that extra flexibility to work at their own pace, at their own time. This is bound to continue. This is our feel as of now. Time will tell.
Thank you. Thank you, Madhu, and thank you, panelists, for answering all the questions. Mr. Sridhar Ganesh, do you have any closing remarks for this session? Yeah.
I certainly have. And I think first of all, I must thank all the speakers for the contribution and the wealth of ideas they have provided. It has been absolutely surplus in terms of the experiences and thoughts. Before I go to specifically the insights that I take away from this session as a participant, I must thank first of all Madhu for being such a wonderful navigator. It's an amazing quality. Thank you, Madhu, for brilliant level of navigation, keeping the balance, ensuring that space is offered to everyone, and culling out the important nuggets from them. I think we deserve to give Madhu a very big hand. So I'm going to do that on the video, and thank you, Madhu. And it only tells us that how much of talent Madhu has in terms of doing this and how we can leverage this for our future. So thank you. I think basically I take away three key messages from each of these sharing of experiences. From Rupesh, I take the wisdom and the input that honesty and transparency and valuing people being at the heart of all that you do, how much it has helped Yazaki as a business, going through the very difficult times. And honesty and transparency in a collective situation is not easy. One-on-one, it is much easier. Having myself spent a lot of time in industrial relations, I can tell you from experience, collectively for unions to accept a position and not see it as something the management is doing against us is something that requires an extraordinary amount of trust. I think I must hats off to Yazaki, hats off to Rupesh for bringing this value in terms of trust. And at its core, I think lies the philosophy of valuing people. So I think it's very important takeaway for all of us in HR in terms of how we put our practices into play. Coming to Major, I think he was absolutely eye-opening in terms of what Himat Singha has done. It's an absolute eye-opener in terms of, and to me, if I were to capsulate all that he mentioned in terms of whether it be testing, quarantining, helping, hospital, nursing, caring, I think at the core of the philosophy lies care, and it's built on the principle, if care is established, productivity will follow. And I think we often fail here. And I think Himat Singha has been able to demonstrate this in a very company-wide manner. It's an amazing thing they have done for 2,000 people, giving them a place to live, removing some of their misapprehensions, helping them to gain their confidence, and providing them at every step a helping hand. I think, again, Major, I think thanks to you and your leadership team and to everyone else in your function, I think hats off in terms of what you have done and achieved. I think it's a great experience, great learning, and I think many of us can take away the centrality of care and how it builds productivity.
Thank you.
I remember a book by George Kohlreiser of INSEAD, where he talks about care to dare, and he says first comes care and then comes dare. When you talk of stretch targets and stretch challenges, I think you have demonstrated amply the hypothesis that caring is at the center of productivity. Finally, to my friend, as I call him, Jayesh, I think this whole business, and you brought it out so beautifully, Madhu, that in engagement at the core lies empathy. To put yourself in somebody else's shoes and see it from their lenses, I think was done beautifully by Jayesh and his team. And I think the way he described their journey in terms of the health and safety programs, the communication, the hubs, the huddle of the leadership team, etc., etc. I think it was absolutely brilliant commentary in terms of what it means to have empathy. And the particular case study you described about a colleague, which is very real. I mean, we've all come across people like that, and I think it's a great example of empathy touching others' heart and being able to say that is the cornerstone of engagement. If you can do that, if you can touch others' lives, I think engagement will follow. Engagement is a byproduct of that, rather than trying engagement per se. So I think on the whole, I want to say that I think I have benefited a lot as a participant. It has been a wonderful session, a lot of learning, a lot of principles to take home, which is very important. And I presume the 95 plus audience that we had would have also benefited from this. So thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Thank you for being with us, and thank you in supporting the Adrenalin Xchange initiative. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all
for being us. Thank you, Madhu, Major, and Rupesh, and Azla as well.
I think we also got 4 friends now, the byproduct of all this.
Yes.
And we can say hello to each other freely without an agenda. So wonderful, gentlemen, wonderful. Thank you very much again. Happy lunch, and work back.
Thank you.
Back to work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
for your time. and for the guidance and the steering. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, dear attendees, for being an amazing audience. Watch out for more thought leadership webinars powered by Adrenalin. Thank you and stay safe.
Thank you, Estrella.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.